But in business, you try to, assuming that you've got a competitor, where's their weakness? How do we prevail over it? And we, even though we may not think it, we learn a lot from the devil.
See, we're watching in our country, one of the satanic schemes is pornography. I mean, okay, there's all kinds of surveys and all kinds of data, so let's assume some of it's correct. Even if part of it's correct, 50% of pastors struggle with pornography. Okay? I mean, you can find studies that say 40 to 70%, so I'm taking 50. Okay? That's somewhere in between. That's a lot. Not to mention the general population of Christians. Not to mention the general population of the population. That is a major strategy that the devil uses. Don't you think? Is it not interesting that Islam, one of the things that Islamic men do is they rape Islamic women. They probably rape anybody, but they rape Islamic women. Now you would think, doesn't Islam say that's probably not a good thing to do? But that's what they do. We're in the midst of a sexual revolution, right? We're your kids, grandkids, whatever. This is the difficulty that they're going to face. And this is simply the devil twisting what was a good thing, a biblical thing, into a bad thing. That's the danger of it. Just a little twist. You ever read the Screw Tape Letters? C.S. Lewis? You know, like what, 1948, 50 or so. The Screw Tape Letters. A beautiful little story using wormwood and screw tape to talk about the devil and the guy who works for the devil about how to mess up men. It's the strategy. It's the methodology. You just have to reverse it, right? You just have to not do what he's doing because what he's doing is bad. You just need to be aware of what he's doing. Say, oh, maybe the devil might do that on me. A more updated version of this is called the Grave Digger File by Os Guinness. It's the Screw Tape Letters 30, 40 years later. I mean, it's just as creative, just as clever. Os Guinness is a very creative writer and brilliant analyst of society. So if you ever see that one, half-price books, you'll pick that up. But the bottom line is, we need to not say, oh, well, yeah, there really isn't any devil. It doesn't really impact me. He's okay with that. We don't also want to say, well, everything goes wrong must be the devil, the demons all over my body, and I'm going crazy and whatever. We don't want to do that. We want to be mindful of the reality. And the reality is, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. That's the balance. He is in the world, but he, capital H, is in me. And he's greater than me. So we need to know that. Now, what's actually taking place? Paul's going to explain why we're to be strong in the strength of his might and why we're to put on the full armor of God. Here's the simple reason, verse 12. For, explanatory, our struggle is not against flesh and blood. It's not against blood and flesh. But it is against the rulers, it's against the powers, it's against the world forces of darkness, it is against the spiritual forces of wickedness. And these reside in the heavenly places. I mean, this is dark. This is dangerous. This is real. There is a war going on. We're barely aware. It's part of this unseen world. Remember Donald Gray Barnhouse? He wrote a book about the unseen world. Michael Heisner wrote a new book called The Unseen Realm. Similar. There is a world beyond my bank account. There's a world beyond the physical. There's a world beyond the globe. We say, oh yeah, there's heaven. Oh yeah, we know heaven. You know, we know heaven. But Paul is saying there is a spiritual war taking place in the heavens. And the devil is part of that. We're going to see a little more of that next week when we see exactly how that works itself out. Yeah.
you probably can't just take a minute on this, but often I'll get the argument for those who believe that the devil's authority is only because God allows it,
The devil's authority is only
because God allows it.
because God allows it.
Okay, so the argument then is, why does God allow it? Or what's the reason for God allowing?
Well, okay, so the devil has authority that's derived, given to him, allowed by God. If that's true, why did God allow that? Well, we can take the same formula. God creates Adam and Eve. God's sovereign, powerful, and all in control. Why does he allow sin? Now we're playing with what argument theologically? Divine sovereignty.
Sovereignty of God and free will of man.
And human free will. And in this case, angelic free will. Because that's all we're doing. We're taking out the human and the angelic, because that's who the devil is, Satan's an angel. So why does God do that? Let me give you a real simple answer. I don't know. Simple and clear. It must be the best way to accomplish the greatest good, or the greater good argument. It must be because God didn't want to create robots, he wanted to create loving people and angelic hosts. That's called the free will argument. Usually, how do we grow? When we get everything given to us, or through struggle, work, and adversity? Struggle, work, and adversity. So that's the theodicy argument. That's the I grow through struggle. So all of those put together, God is in the process of allowing humankind to grow and mature, to be free agents, to demonstrate love and commitment to him, all of which will bring glory to him. And this must be the ultimate best way to do that, because this is the way he is allowed. Now that's the big answer, but as to the pinpoint, I don't know. I mean, you think this is really the best way? Hitler's really the best way? Stalin's really the best way? Pol Pot's really the best way? Hillary's really the best way? I mean, really? You're kidding me? How can it possibly be? And again, I don't know. But what Paul does want us to know, let's see.
There you go.
Yeah. He is a roaring lion, the devil, but he's on a leash. He's limited. God's in control, not the devil. Because greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. Tony Evans says this. He says, what Paul wants you and I to know, and give us some inside information on, is that everything visible and physical is preceded by something invisible and spiritual. That's verse 12. Therefore, if you want to address the visible and physical result and effect, you must identify the invisible spiritual cause. Without identifying the invisible spiritual root, you are going to be thrown off by the visible physical fruit. There's a real world here, there's a real world there, and they interface through angelic hosts, divine messengers, demons, and the methodology and schemes of the devil. He roamed around, Job, he roams around here like a roaring lion. He's on a leash, but he roars and wants to devour.
This may be a satanic impulse, but I have trouble believing somebody who says what Paul wants I to know.
I know.
Oh, he's the grammarian.
You sound like a lawyer, David.
No, he's an English teacher. English teacher.
Anybody that can't say it right doesn't
I agree. I
I
agree.
took a picture of the
Trying to
quote.
communicate.
I put it in the slide. It was too small. I said, Marcia, can you retype this and make it bigger? She did. She goes, this guy's got clunky grammar in the way this is worded. I said, it's a quote. Put it the way it is.
Sure, that's called your bonnet.
You're going over it.
I wouldn't read him.
Boy, you can read.
Try to get over that and see the big picture here. There's truth here.
You were kind enough to put in here, but it includes it, i.e. the physical world. As we discussed before, we have the spiritual warfare. We also have social warfare, which Russell deals in a lot. So, we have to have both, but one comes before the other. Is what
Well,
he's saying, right?
and there is social warfare. I mean, What do you think this racism issue is all about?
Oh,
This is demonic.
That's tribalism. In Africa, it's tribalism. Where we are in Kenya, there's 41 tribes, and they used to fight amongst each other. And what finally got Kenya straightened away is Premier Kibaki and Odinga got together and said, "This is killing our economy. You all knock this stuff off and work together." And
Yeah,
Episcopal.
not that it's killing each other, it's killing the economy.
They were killing each other also.
Right.
But that was recognizing that was a huge, huge deal in Kenya. And so the Kikuyas and the Kumbas and so forth, quit. It is absolutely racist, except it's African tribalism just brought someplace else.
But the point is, it's demonic.
It is demonic. It is absolutely
Satan's
demonic.
way.
As we
I mean,
discussed.
bottom line, racism actually doesn't exist. That sounds strange, but the reason I say that is simply, how many races are there?
Bunch.
No,
There's one. There's a human race.
human race. So racism has already been co-opted by the terminology that we're using. Now, I'm not saying there isn't hatred between black, white, or Zumba and Hoomba, or whatever. But what I'm saying is, there's one human race. How it got diversified, that's a Tower of Babel deal, and that's a whole lot of other stuff. Okay, but it is diverse, we get that. So we know what we mean by race, but racism itself doesn't exist technically, but functionally it does. But the functionally fact that it does is because this is one of the methods of the devil. And it's been very effective wherever it's been. And it's cooking right now. That's what's going on. So Paul, if he was in America today, he would say, yes, you all got a problem with that down here, but that's not your real problem. The real problem is this is a methodology, this is a scheme of the devil, and there is a war going on there. So you need to put on the full armor of God that you're able to stand, because we're in a warfare that is supernatural.
This raises a very interesting question. Is that warfare only through God's creation, or is there a war going on up there, as you just indicated? Is there a realm where there's actual struggle going on, or is it through God's creation that we see the struggle?
Yes and yes, because the angelic host is part of God's creation.
And there's a war.
And there's a war up there, and there's a war down here.
So,
And one day, guess who's going to win the war in both places? Yeah. That's why when you read through the book of Revelation, this unleashed lion, this satanic personage of the Antichrist, by the devil's power, is one day going to be overthrown. The devil himself, during the millennial kingdom, will be what? Chained away, and then released at the end, and then finally taken out and put into everlasting darkness.
How would you visualize this war up there? Are there beings that are being pulled from one domain to the other? How do you see that?
Well, let's find a movie that represents it.
Okay, the War of Worlds.
H.G. Wells, everywhere. It seems to me that there are angelic hosts. It seems to me there is an actual conflict at a cosmic level taking place. The Son is at the right hand of the Father. The angelic hosts have been split. A third of them fell and didn't die. They're with the devil, and he leads them to help destroy and deceive Christians here and help them destroy and deceive non-believers here. But it seems that there's something else going on in the heavenly realms. Next week we'll probably take a look at that, because there's this thing called the Council of the Sons of God. Who is that? And they're called the Elohim, plural. Now there's an El, E-L, and there's an Elohim, plural. There's a Yahweh, and there's no one else other than that. But there's multiple Elohim. They're not human. They may not just be angelic. They're something else. And they help run the universe. And by the way, one day, who is going to rule the angels?
us.
Us. We're going to rule the angels. That's what Paul says in Corinthians. Can't you guys solve the smallest problem? You're going to rule the angels. Can't you solve a lawsuit deal down here? You guys are nuts. We are going to rule the world with King Jesus, and the angelic host will serve us and whatever. But right now, there's war.
it strikes me that we are the ultimate plunder. That is, there may be a fight going on elsewhere, but ultimately, we're the plunder of the winning side of whatever the fight may be. And therefore, there may be something going on. They may be skirmishing, but the goal ultimately is us. And the biggest problem maybe we have, at least one of them strikes me, is if you don't know what the problem is, then you don't know how to fix it, or if you don't even know you've got a problem, it's even worse. So this devil business strikes me as kind of heading in that direction.
So when the devil's undetected, you don't know you have a problem, but you do.
Right.
You don't know that you're fighting and what to do, and then so you just get wound up down here. Instead, Paul says, no. There's something
Right.
going on up here. So that doesn't mean we're so heavenly minded we're no earthly good. Okay, we're not doing that. We still live down here. We have to be, righteous and whatever. But he's right. The devil helped to mislead and destroy mankind. Adam and Eve story.
Right.
Guess who the second Adam is? Jesus, who comes and fulfills all that Adam was supposed to do. And one day, we are going to do what Adam was supposed to do and he didn't do. And that is rule the world, have dominion, and multiply. Adam messed up, and therefore the Messiah had to come. He was promised back in Genesis. All through history, he finally comes, and what do? They kill him. But that's okay. He rises from the dead. Oops. Now he's seated at the right hand. And now he is setting all things right. But yeah, it's a war down here. And Paul says, don't just be mad at the Ephesian shock troops. Don't just be mad at the Roman governor. Don't just be mad at whoever the Caesar is of the day. You notice how Paul doesn't say, let's have a social revolution? He doesn't say, let's get rid of slavery because that's what we should do. He doesn't say any of that stuff. He says, stand firm because you're fighting against the devil. Not Tiberius, not this, not that. This is where the war is. It's up here, and you need to have your mind up here because you've got a methodology issue of the devil. Now, how do we communicate that to our kids and grandkids? Not to mention us, right? At the end of the day, having done all, stand and pray at all times without ceasing. Now, there's the key. Stand and pray. Now, I guarantee you, if we were to check any church and ask them about the prayer meeting, most of them would say, a what? The what? Yeah, the old-fashioned prayer meeting. We used to have one at our church. We don't have it. We used to have a lot of stuff at our church we don't have anymore. Because it's not in anymore. So, just, no hands here, but how many minutes a day do you pray? Doesn't feel good to think about that, does it? Well, put that about a third, and that's what your kids do, unfortunately.
Or zero.
Or zero. So, we're a long way from where Paul wants us to be. Because we don't quite understand. There is a devil, there is a war, there is a battle, there is a methodology, and we are susceptible to it. We can't be overcome by it in that, but we are susceptible to the wiles, the willings of the devil, the schemata, or the methodia, the methodology that the devil uses. We're in a real game. Now it's up to you as grandparents to figure out how do I help reintroduce that to my kids in a way that doesn't come off too weird, not too obnoxious, not too whatever. But how am I going to get that down to them? How am I going to get that down to my grandkids?
Yeah, that's right.
And how do I do that without offending my kid in the process? Oh, this is work. Some of our kids and grandkids are walking with the Lord, some aren't. Some are deep with the Lord, some aren't. Same with the grandkids, okay? So your job, you thought you were done and retired. No, you just have a new title. How are you going to help them understand this reality? That's your job. Ralph, you have a question?
Well, in the meantime, we're waiting for you, Cleve, and me to take charge up there. There's a hierarchy working. That's what you referred to.
Yeah, right now I think there's a hierarchy of angelic beings who are obeying Jesus and ruling and kind of guiding the universe, and there's an anti-force following the devil.
That's
right?
who's doing that.
Yeah.
You said that racism was demonic and the work of the devil. Do you have some Ephesian scripture that addresses that and that essentially we're one people and we should cooperate and there are no Jews, no Gentiles, and so forth. Is there something in Ephesians or one of the other New
Well, in
Testament?
Galatians, Paul makes the point, there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave or free, male or female, we are all one in Christ.
Do you have something you could tie it to the devil? Is it's the devil's work dividing the Christians and Jews and so forth? That would be very helpful if you had that.
Well,
I'll let you think about it and you can tell me at the end of class. I don't
well,
want to.
the first thing we see though is the devil comes into the garden. His goal is to basically turn Adam and Eve away from trusting Yahweh. Did God say? Can you really trust that? Oh, no. He knows if you have a bite of this one, you'll be like him and see good and evil. So he's basically trying to get Adam and Eve to not trust what God said. Right? So when they do that, now we have the fall. Now we have children born, and then we have sin. We have the Cain and Abel story. We don't have, the Bible says, and the devil tempted the Cain issue, whatever, but he's in the backdrop of all of this. We don't have the devil at the Tower of Babel, but imagine he's at the backdrop of all this. So I can't find a passage in the Old Testament that shows me that. In the New Testament, we have a little more information about the devil and what he does. As to why Jews and Gentiles hate each other, that's been going on since day one, which is total irony because the Jews were created and named by God to be the people who would reach out to who?
The chosen to us.
The Gentiles, right? They were supposed to be the advertisement to bring in all people so that there would not be tribalism, so that there wouldn't be, quote, racism or the consequences of it.
If you would think on that, that is a very real problem in Dallas right now. As you know, I'm at St. Luke's, and there's a race war that people are trying to stir up, and the whole what is it, the white supremacy movement, this magic movement that's out there, that is very real. At least in the black community, they believe that, and the church is getting enmeshed in that, and any ammunition I have would be very helpful.
Amen.
Well, Paul says, here's our conclusion, verse 13. Therefore, okay, in line with what I just told you, take up the full armor of God. That's verse 11, right? Where he said, put on the full armor of God. Now he says, take up the full armor of God, that you may be able to resist in the evil day, and having done everything, to stand firm. To stand firm. That was how he started, that's how he ended. Standing. Being able to stand. Having done everything, you're going to be able to stand. Paul understood where these people were. Remember, Paul's in jail, by the way. Remember? He's in jail, not a good life. He's writing to these people. He's saying, you think I got a problem in jail? Huh, nothing. You guys are at war with the evil one. You guys are at war with evil. Remember, that's why Paul said earlier, put every evil thought out of your head. Don't even talk that way to one another. Because that's evidence that the devil is seeping into you. So Paul wants them to understand. He wants them to stand. He wants them to stand against the willies, the wiles. Adam and Eve failed to do this. Jesus succeeded in doing this at the temptation account in Matthew 4. We are here as the church, corporately and individually, to live in the power of the Spirit as new creatures in Christ, Ephesians 1 through 3, as we walk in light, walk in wisdom, walk worthy, walk in love. That's the functionality. Now we're ready to handle the war. And Paul has dished up the war very quickly, very clearly, very succinctly, where it is, what it is, and how we're supposed to engage in it. So how are we going to engage in it? How are we going to help our kids understand it? That's something to think about. Lord, thank you for your word. Thank you for the truth. We pray for your hand of protection in our lives, and that you would continue to use us to honor you until you come for us. Do protect us, Lord, from the evil one. And give us wisdom of how to understand and then apply this to our life today, and how to utilize it to impact our families for your glory. We pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.